It was Mitch Keller's turn to get some rare run support to back his play, and it led to a Pirates 8-5 victory, securing the series win against the Tigers and maybe having some fans think twice about moving some of these buckos. That's next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Welcome to Locked On Pirates. I'm Gary Morgan. Hey, a Buccos series win against what was the team with the best record in baseball. This team is Bizarro World. It's almost like if you can logically make a case for what you're about to see, this team will execute the opposite. Today, we're going to talk about last night's game, some lineup observations I've made, and we also have to talk about getting cold feet on moving some guys. All right? The Pittsburgh Pirates defeated the Detroit Tigers 8-5 last night at PNC Park. Spencer Horwitz opened the scoring with a 2-run double in the second inning. Brian Reynolds contributed RBI singles in both the third and the sixth. Tommy Pham added a run-scoring double in the sixth. Oneil Cruz showcased aggressive base running, scoring on a defensive lapse by Spencer Torkelson over at first base. And I think that's being rude to Spencer Torkelson, because most players would not have taken advantage of that lapse. If you're listening instead of watching, I'm doing the whole air quote thing. Because really all he did is just kind of jog back to a ball that I think 90% of players would jog back to. There's no reason to think somebody's going to try to score from second base on an errant throw like that. And it didn't get all that far away from him. He just took his focus off of Oneil Cruz. That's all. It's not like it took him particularly long to get back there to it. It's not like anything earth-shattering happened. He just took his eyes off Oneil Cruz. And I think in many ways this exemplifies the frustration that fans have with Oneil Cruz, because that was a brainy, athletic, and freak show type play that he can do. It shows his intelligence. He's paying attention to the situation of the play. You know, if you watched him do it too, he almost baited him into it. He jogged through into third and just nonchalantly continued on through third like he was just taking a routine, slow little turn. But then he noticed, hey, this guy's not looked at me once. This guy's not paying any attention to me, and he's just nonchalantly going after that ball. If I just turn on the Jets, and boom, without a second thought, turns on the Jets and scores this run. I'm not going to say it was crucial because the Pirates won 8-5. But the way this team scores and the way that Detroit is capable of scoring, who knew how important that was going to be at the time? Big move, I think, for Oneil Cruz. And again, signifies why fans are frustrated with him, because he could do special things like this a lot. He just isn't always that kind of engaged. And last night he really was. In a lot of ways. I mean, that was just a perfect example of what you're missing with Oneil Cruz when he's not 100% tuned in. He's still a good player when he's not. But when he is, well, that's the kind of stuff he can do. It's hard to ever truly give up on a player like that or embrace them, especially if you always think there's a little bit more in the tank. The Pirates trio of Horwitz, Pham, and Cruz each hit 2 doubles, and that has not been done by a Pirates trio since 2002. Mitch Keller is now 4-10. He earned the win. He allowed 3 runs on 6 hits over 6 innings. Of course, everybody is rumoring him to be a trade candidate. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the third segment. David Bednar secured his 15th save, and he was in a little bit of a ninth inning jam, but he struck out 2 guys in a row, Riley Green and Perez. Casey Mize, fresh off his first All-Star appearance, took the loss in this one, gave up 5 runs, 4 of them earned on 10 hits and only 4 innings. Jake Rogers, big 3-run homer off Mitch Keller, really his only blemish of the night. Jahmai Jones had a 2-run pinch hit homer in the 8th off Caleb Ferguson, who's really been struggling. That was the first home run Caleb Ferguson's given up, though, in something like a full season, I think. So pretty crazy, actually. Javier Baez returned to the lineup last night for Detroit, and he went 1 for 4. He missed Monday's game with shoulder soreness. Pirates now have won 2 straight against the AL Central leading Tigers, who dropped 8 of their last 9 games. This series wraps up today as Detroit is calling up Troy Melton for his MLB debut to face good old Bailey Falter. So going to be a good game this afternoon. Really would like the Pirates to get the sweep. Not that it will mean anything in the standings, but you love to see them finish a sweep. And Detroit really is struggling. As bad as the Pirates have been coming into this series, they were on a stretch of losing 11 of 12. We just talked about Detroit. Detroit's really struggling right now. They have, for whatever reason, just lost their mojo suddenly. And it could be some injuries, and I think they just got Kerry Carpenter back, and Javi Baez obviously nicked up a little bit. Those guys will help. I don't know that I'm worried about Detroit right now as far as where they stand. I think they'll figure things out. But for right now, they unexpectedly have been what the Pirates needed. I think the Pirates play better against better competition, if that makes any sense at all. The teams that are supposed to destroy them are the ones that the Pirates tend to show up for. And the teams that they're supposed to compete with or supposed to be close matches, they tend not to be. Isn't that weird? I mean, it feels like they play their division foes better than they play, outside of the division, and meaning like record-wise, they match up better with like the Cincinnati Reds and Milwaukee Brewers and the Cubs and the Cardinals. And it's because I feel like they put some kind of a level of importance on it. They seem to do the same thing when they come up against these teams that are leading in division, or they're just in a particular hot streak or whatever. The Pirates, I don't know if they just take it as an extra challenge or if they really do get up for it more. I don't know. That's probably speaks to coaching a little bit more than anything. I mean, I know the jaded in you might want to assume that they're trying to audition for where they could go at the trade deadline. I don't think that's the case here, especially with Detroit. I just don't think there's a good marriage there for most of what the Pirates have to offer. But I thought that was an interesting game, and the series has certainly not gone as I expected. Even the thing is, like when you go ahead and get swept by the White Sox, then you go up against Detroit. Even if you sweep Detroit, it does not erase what just happened against the White Sox, right? It just, all it does is kind of make it like, well, what the hell happened to you in the White Sox series? Because that team had no business doing to you what they did to you, and further proof is like, well, look what Cincinnati's doing to the White Sox. I mean, like, I think there's inexplicable things that happen in series where some team just has your number or whatever. I don't feel like the White Sox had the Pirates number or anything. They just flat out hit the Pirates like crazy. And everything that had been working for the Pirates wasn't. And the other thing I'd like to say is, just coming out of the All-Star break, you're a team with a really bad record. I think it was an admission that we're done trying, or we're done thinking that we're ever going to pull out of this downward spiral. By the way, they came out of the All-Star break. I mean, they come out of the All-Star break with, I think one of your weaker pitchers, and I mean, it took them a full series to get to Skeens and Keller. I mean, to me, that probably sends a message to the whole team like, hey, and I know what they're doing. They're trying to just make that break as long as possible for both of those guys. Those are the horses, right? This should also kind of lead you to believe that they're thinking of Mitch Keller beyond this series, right? Because they're talking about him hitting 200 innings this year again, and they're talking about like managing him down the stretch. I mean, Don Kelly was just doing it the other night. I'm not saying that Don wouldn't do that even if they were trading him, but I do think it maybe leads into a little bit of why some of us are getting some cold feet, which we're going to talk about later. When we come back, I want to just talk about the lineup a little bit. Pirates did something yesterday that just kind of got my gears going about it. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts and investments and spending in one place. It's so in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. There's a very specific category that affects me a lot, and it's takeout. I tend to order a lot of takeout, especially if my wife's closing, and sometimes lose track of how much you're actually spending when you add up all the tips and delivery fees and things like that. Just because you don't feel like cooking. Well, Monarch Money can snap me right back to reality pretty quickly, just showing me how much I'm spending. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Hey, make sure you subscribe. You guys are really, really killing it. Seriously. Last night the Bucks sat Kutch and used the DH spot for Brian Reynolds. And that moved Nick Gonzalez up to the 2-hole. And guys, I have to tell you, I hadn't thought of him in that spot, but I liked it. I like the type of hitter he is for that spot. I think he's a guy that's going to, more often than not, hit the ball in the right direction. He seems to really have that kind of discipline at the plate where he seems to know what he needs to get accomplished. He did it just yesterday. Productive out that moved Horwitz over, and ultimately Brian Reynolds was able to drive him in. It shouldn't sound like a revolutionary idea, but for this team, it kind of is. We haven't had people doing that. We haven't had even just productive outs at the plate. And I really liked what Nick Gonzalez looked like there. So I figured it's time to see if we can maybe start working this lineup a bit differently. It's been cool what Don Kelly has tried to do, which was keeping a similar lineup out there and not changing it all the time. And I appreciate that. But the season has changed. And to me, so have the mix of players. So I want to have a fresh look at it, okay? I just think there's a different way to kind of organize them a little bit. First, I like Horwitz at leadoff, at least for now. I don't think it's ideal, if only because he is slower than Moses in January. So I'm not 100% sure that I want to do that. I don't even know if it's that he's slow as much as deliberate on the bases, if you know what I mean. Like he takes a really, really wide turn trying to score, like coming around third base. He's just in general got a weird gait that shows you he just doesn't have a lot of speed. I heard some people say that they thought maybe he was a little bit faster than they thought. Well, he did score a couple runs last night, but I don't know that I can get behind that. I think he pretty much is the speed I thought he was. It's the question about having him at leadoff with that speed. Now, if he's going to get on base the way he is or has the last couple days, it makes a heck of a lot more sense. But I still think at some point you'd want to replace that. You'd want to get more of a true leadoff hitter. But for right now, what we have, I think he's probably about their best choice. He is going to make contact a lot. He is going to take a good at bat. And it's going to be a kind of a natural good at bat. He's just going to take a lot of pitches and see a lot of pitches and foul off a lot of pitches. That's kind of what he does. And when he's seeing the ball well, he really is a high OBP guy. So that's what we thought we were acquiring. It's what I think we thought was coming. These wrist injuries do take things from guys. They do sap you of power. They do make it really hard to get those high exit velocity hits. They do make it difficult to sometimes turn on pitches or even take them the other way if they're in a certain spot in the strike zone. So I don't want to 100% decide what Spencer Horwitz is right now, but I think so far I am happy that they've added him. And I think that they probably do have at least a good shot at an answer for first base. I'd really like to see him continue to develop. Leadoff. I want Nick Gonzalez at number 2. I want to see that for a little while. I just like that partnership. I think Horwitz getting on base, Gonzalez getting him moved over. I think that's a good partnership there. And I think at times Gonzalez is going to hit those doubles that he tends to do to the gap. And those are the types of plays that if you're going to have it happen are where Horwitz is going to be able to score from first base. That's not going to come on, most situations, but I do think that it gives you the ability there and to at least get him over to third, which is kind of an interesting setup for Reynolds and Cruz, right? Because you got Reynolds coming up. I would have third. If you have Reynolds batting third, well, they can walk Reynolds if they want, but they'd be getting to Cruz. And I don't think anybody's going to want to do that. Reynolds right now is not being protected by really anybody. They've had Kutch batting second, and then they have Reynolds, and then for cleanup, yeah, they've used Gonzalez a few times, and I don't hate that. But I also think at this point of his career, I'm not sure Gonzalez is threatening enough to get Reynolds pitched to. Okay? Maybe he should be. Maybe like pitchers really should kind of realize that he's a little bit more consistent than Cruz. So at the very least, you should worry much more about bat on ball with Gonzalez. But he's still not Oneil Cruz, and I think Oneil Cruz scares people. I would rather have Cruz backing up Reynolds. I also think there's something to be said for engaging someone that you struggle to engage by putting them in the cleanup spot. Give Oneil Cruz more responsibility, if you ask me. Put him in that cleanup spot. Let him just be the anchor of this lineup. Even if it doesn't work, what are we hurting this year? This is the type of thing I think that you want him to ultimately land in that spot, right? I think realistically, if you had your way, Oneil Cruz is probably your number 2 hitter. He just doesn't make enough contact. So he's got to be 3 or 4 to me. I think I'd like leaving him in the cleanup spot. That's where I'd put him. Then I'd follow it with Kutch at 5. And why am I dropping Kutch a little bit? Well, I'm dropping Kutch a little bit because personally, I think Kutch is playing too much. And I think that DH spot is much easier to flip things in and out of if you're not putting it up in your 2-hole or your 4-hole. If it's down at 5, I think you can swap that player out a little bit easier and not lose the integrity of your entire lineup, which is one of the big problems I think they have right now with Andrew McCutchen. They're batting him up in that top of the lineup, second. And if he rests, well, they have to switch and flop and flip a whole bunch of stuff. And I'd rather just leave him down at 5, let that spot kind of float if you need it to. In fact, I think they should let it float a little bit here. As I said the other day, we know what Kutch is, so let's let him finish the season with a tank half full. I'm pretty sure he's coming back. I don't need to see anymore to figure out what he is, right? Use that DH spot a little bit more liberally with some other players. Not to the point where you piss Kutch off, but to the point where he understands what you're doing. I think he's a team player. He understands. After Kutch, though, I'd go with Hayes at 6. I think Hayes has kind of always been a 6 hitter, really, right? 6 or 7. Let's embrace it. Let him be a 6 or 7. And then if you get to your 7 spot, to me, this is right now Pham, Canario, and Jack. I don't really care what outfielders they have or what left fielders they have or who they trade for. That's right now, that's the spot. If they trade for somebody that is more proven, okay. Well, we'll figure it out. But for right now, we don't have that. So this is what I do. The 7th hole is Pham, Canario, or Jack. Davis, starting catcher, hitting 8th. Hopefully the bat comes along if you let him play a lot more consistently. And then IKF at 9. Now this is only going to last until the deadline, right? I think we'll have to flip again. But I think you could get a good week of that sort of setup in there and just see if maybe some of the pieces, and you expect the way I set this up too, that whole top like 5 or 6 of the lineup, for the most part, they're not getting traded. So that's a really good way to kind of solidify some of the lineup. So maybe as the deadline does take place, if you do end up moving parts and pieces, it doesn't affect everybody so drastically. You know, I think there's just a little bit of preparation that needs to be done there. So that's my lineup. I think it's a pretty solid way to look at it. Horowitz, Gonzalez, Reynolds, Cruz, Kutch, Hayes, Pham, Canario, Jack, Davis, and IKF. I think that's a perfect way to go with what they have right this second. The other thing I wanted to talk about before we get to the third segment, which is about getting cold feet on trading some guys, is this whole thing with Liover Peguero. Why call up Liover Peguero? Like, if we are to a point in Major League Baseball where there is just a spot that's going to be rotten because you have to have 13 position players, you know, the way they've split it up, they've limited how many pitchers you're allowed to call up. So that has to be 13. That means your position players are obviously 13. You can actually have more position players. You can have 14 if you want and go with 12 pitchers. They'll allow that. They will not allow it in the reverse. All right, that's Major League Baseball rules. There's nothing I can do about that. But you have a 26-man roster, and with the DH universal now throughout the game, hardly anybody pinch hits anymore, really. You know, and so what you've created is just this weird extra player that sits on your bench, and his role is to collect dust. And that's what Liover Peguero is right now. It sends you on a constant search for somebody that sucks just enough that you don't care that they sit on the bench, right? How many times have we talked about, like, we can't call up Nick York because he'd just sit on the bench? Well, it's true. Like, look at this team. They have 2 guys that just sit on their bench. Canario just got his second start of July last night. It's the 23rd, peeps. That's not cool. That's not cool. That's way too little playing time for anybody. Major League Baseball needs to either go back to the 25-man roster, or they need to allow teams to just go ahead and go with 14 pitchers instead of 13. It's just creating a wasted spot on teams. And I'm not even getting into why they brought a guy like Peguero up here if they're not going to use him at all. Early afternoon game today, maybe we'll see him. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk about getting cold feet for trading some guys. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had a service emergency, like a burst pipe. If the first plumber didn't answer, did you wait? Nope. You called the next one. That's why having a reliable business line is so important, and that's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. Did you juggle 2 phones just to keep your business and personal calls separate? OpenPhone solves that instantly. OpenPhone is offering Locked On Pirates listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonmlb. That's openphone.com/lockedonmlb. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Hey, I feel like I'm hosting a Nickelodeon show. Like, remember back in the day that Are You Afraid of the Dark? Well, are you sure? Are you sure about who you think is a trade candidate for this team? Are you okay with really trading some of the things that we've talked about trading? Let's talk about David Bednar, who's been absolutely unhittable since he came back from the AAA send down that he had earlier in the season to try to get him right. The reason David Bednar is an interesting trade candidate is because David Bednar has one more year of team controlled arbitration. In this year of team controlled arbitration, there's a very good chance he's going to make between $8 and $10 million. I think that is the exact same situation that the Milwaukee Brewers had with Josh Hader a few years ago, where they ended up moving him at the deadline in the middle of a playoff race that they were in. The Pirates certainly do not have that problem. So, a couple things here with Bednar. There are ways to escape this. There are reasons to think that it might not happen. One, the guy is extremely close to Bob Nutting. He's the face of the franchise as far as local tie-in goes. He's taken that over from Neil Walker, who was before him. For whatever reason in this market, we find that to be extra endearing, especially if you play well. And right now, David Bednar is playing really well. So your options are trade him because he's really valuable and he's pitching like a top-end closer in this league. He has the longest streak of consecutive saves without a blown save going today. He's going to be a hot commodity. There's going to be people that want him. So you can trade him and you can probably get a decent return. You can probably even get something that helps really soon. Maybe even as early as next year. Maybe even right away. But there's another way to go. And you could try to extend him. You could try to offer him something that makes him a little bit more reasonable to keep around for 2 or 3 years. I wouldn't want to go much further than that. I've seen too many bullpen arms fall apart. And frankly, I just don't think this is a team that can afford to pay one reliever, $10 million a year. I just don't think that's the best setup or the best use of money here. But if you could talk him into taking something like $8 million a year for 3 years and give him a no trade clause until the last year of the deal or something like that, I don't know. Or make it a very limited no trade clause. I think maybe that's a way that you could go about it. But to me, if you don't have that secured that you're going to be able to get that extension done and it's going to be reasonable, like you haven't already had that dialogue with Mitch Keller, or not Mitch Keller, David Bednar, you better just do it. You better not look a gift horse in the mouth. We've seen this team do this before with Mark Melanson. I mean, that's how they got He Who Shan't Be Named, to replace him. I mean, like you can do it. You can get a good closer. You can get it on the market. You might even have it internally already. So it's not like I think you desperately have to hold on to him. I'm just saying I think it could be done. The next question is, are you going to need a closer next year? Are you actually going to be good? Are you? I'm asking. These are questions that this team needs to ask. So I ask you, do you have cold feet for trading David Bednar? What would you do? How about Mitch Keller? Mitch Keller's locked up for a long time. We know that his pay is going to be reasonable, at least as far as the league goes. And he represents one of the first times the Pirates have committed to pay anybody that kind of money. And I'm talking like over $20 million a year at some point in that contract. It's something we have never seen them do. Part of me wants to see them do it. Part of me wants to see them actually get there and do it. Just if only because it would show the willingness of Bob Nutting to meet a certain figure for a salary in a season. And I think that would just open some doors as far as conversations we could have about signings, extensions, things like that. But Mitch Keller's a good pitcher. He's a horse pitcher. He's going to be very valuable. He's going to be very wanted. I think he could get a great return. I think he could get you help today. And I think he could probably drop your payroll moving into next year. And in a perfect world, it would be opening up payroll to do something, not opening up payroll just for the sake of opening payroll. Problem is, there's no way I can guarantee that's what they would use the dollars for. But Mitch Keller is going to remain a hot candidate. Are you getting cold feet for moving him? Are you starting to think better of it? There's part of me that has, honestly, because I suggested this probably before the season even turned into this. I was talking about this like in the off season, even on my other show, Pirates Fan Forum. We had a whole discussion about this, like I think 2 weeks before the season even opened, because we just saw this coming as setting up as a good candidate to get bats, which we didn't see them bring in. So we were already talking about addressing these needs. And Keller's name came up then. I still think he makes a lot of sense for that. Can also say, these pitchers don't grow on trees. And I've changed my mind slightly, if only because I've watched a lot more of Bubba Chandler. And I don't think he's as drop-in replacement ready as a lot of fans tend to. I think he's going to be good, but I think he's going to take some time. I think it's going to take a minute. The sooner they get him up here and get it started, the better. But I mean, they don't have time to prove it out before they would have to make this trade at this point. To me, there's no hurry on this. You've got a lot of control on Keller. I think this is a decision I would push to the offseason. I just don't think it has to be made at this deadline. I don't think you're going to get the type of return that you want for him at this deadline. So to me, I would change on this one and move this to the offseason. And the last one I really wanted to kind of talk about, there could be other trades, obviously. There's a lot of rentals and everything. But Dennis Santana is another one that I keep hearing. He's a cheaper option at a stellar reliever. He's been great. I think we could get him done for a lot cheaper than Bednar. They have a year of team control over him still. They could take him to arbitration. He'd still be cheaper than David Bednar. This is a guy that I think they should consider extending, almost like what I just suggested with Bednar. In fact, man, I'd almost present them, offers at the same time. Like, hey, would you like this? I'd pay Santana less than I would pay Bednar because he hasn't done it as long. But I think you could present them both with extension ideas. And if one of them is receptive to it, boom. Take one, trade the other. Yeah, I think it's clear one of them is going to have to go. They're both really going to be sought after. They really are. I think you'd get more for Bednar. Again, the track record's bigger. I think the dominance is a little bit more apparent too. A little bit more understandable visually as to why he's getting outs as opposed to Dennis Santana. But those are three guys that, I got to be honest, you should be getting a little bit of a queasy stomach about trading. You really should, because these guys could all contribute for a while. They really could. And the Pirates have more pitching coming. It's just, how are they going to use it? Are we going to force Colin Holderman back up here, whether he's figured things out or not? You're going to force Dowry Moretta back up here, whether he's right or not? We're going to wait for Tim Mesa to come back and hopefully save the bullpen? Are they going to get anything for Caleb Ferguson? You got to think about things like that. He's really been struggling these last few weeks. Those guys might come off of other people's boards, and then your pool of what you can actually move shrinks. You may not be able to move all these rentals, and then you aren't getting back what you need. So you may have to think about moving one of these guys that was in your gray area. Well, it's interesting. I love trade deadline talk. Okay. I wish for once I was on the other side of it looking to buy. Like, I think this team should be even right now. But I do think it's interesting, all the ins and outs of this stuff. Let's hope that the Pirates can finish this sweep today. Why not? We still want to win, right? It'll be fun to watch wins. Let's see what Bailey Falter can do. See if he can get back on the horse a little bit, actually. Be an interesting outing today, and we'll see what they do against a rookie. The Pirates traditionally screw up against rookie pitchers. They have no scouting, and for whatever reason, they just can't figure it out in game. The younger and more inexperienced you are, the better you're going to do against the Pirates most of the time. So we'll see what happens there. Be at you with an all-new show tomorrow. We're going to be talking about some more trade deadline rumors and whatnot that are going on around the league. Thanks, everybody. Let's go Bucks.